For me, it was disturbing on a few levels because, in all the years I've visited London, I've never seen Sammy Davis Jr. maintain a storage facility under a false name. Until his death, he made monthly cash payments. He remained undisturbed. In a Burbank warehouse for 30 years, investigators discovered more than mementos when they eventually opened it. The identity of his real mother was revealed in letters, recordings of talks that could ruin careers, and evidence of the actual events involving Kim Novak. In 1958, he kept records on everything. The truth has finally come to light after 30 years of silence. On December 8, 1925, Sammy Davis Jr. was born in Harlem, New York City. Both of his parents, Ella Sanchez and Sammy Davis Sr., performed in vaudeville. This indicated that Sammy had a history in show industry from birth. However, there was a secret to his tale. Ella, his mother, was Cuban. Sentiment in America at the time, the family kept that information private. Back then, disclosing such origins may have harmed record sales and popular support. Racism and the need to conceal aspects of Sammy's identity influenced his life. Even as a newborn, his first stage was Harlem, which was teeming with the vitality of the Harlem Renaissance and served as the backdrop for the remainder of his life. Sammy began performing with the Will Maston Trio, which was fronted by his father and a family friend named Will Maston, when he was just 2 years old. Toys were used by the majority of toddlers. Across the nation, Sammy performed and danced in theaters. He used the spotlight as a playground, but at a price. He had an unusual upbringing. Instead, while other children attended school, he developed his trade and learned how to captivate audiences. It was tiring to tour all the time. However, it strengthened him. Additionally, it exposed him to the nasty side of racism in the United States. He felt the pain of being treated differently after seeing the signs that read whites only. He had a burning desire to break down barriers from an early age. Sammy's life changed at the age of 3. His parents divorced. After his father took him into custody, he became even more involved in show business. Will Maston developed into more than just a guide. He took on the role of a godfather, doing everything in his power to protect Sammy. However, no one could provide more protection than that. Sammy witnessed the prejudice experienced by black performers. However, he also learned how to respond with skill, poise, and unwavering diligence. He was not your typical child, even as a toddler. He was a seasoned pro by this point, touring from city to city and astounding audiences. Sammy first appeared on the big screen in Rufus Jones for President when he was 7 years old. He co-starred with Ethel Waters in a movie that ventured to show a black boy in the White House. Despite its humor, the film included serious themes. Black faces were uncommon in Hollywood at the time, but Sammy's charm made the screen shine. His dancing and singing won many over. What was to happen was alluded to in the movie. Sammy was more than just an entertainer. He was powerful. If only for a short while, he had the unique ability to make people see past the hue of his skin. However, the stage life required sacrifice. Unlike other children, Sammy never attended school. For him, there were no chalkboards, desks, or school bells. He learned from the road, from literature he came across, from people he encountered, and from the stages he owned. He taught himself skills, instruments, and languages that were not available in a classroom. He was as hungry to perform as he was to learn. He demonstrated that a schoolhouse is not always the source of greatness. Passion, perseverance, and an insatiable curiosity can all contribute to it. Everything changed in 1943. Sammy was drafted into the U.S. Army at the age of 18, weighing 120 pounds and standing 5 feet 6 inches. He entered a much harsher world after leaving the protection of the stage. Although the promise of oneness was false, he joined one of the first merged units. Racism was rampant in the Army. He was slurred by the first soldier he encountered. The harsh reality struck him hard. In uniform, his talent had little significance. He battled for his life, encountering hatred and altercations nearly daily. The purpose of the Army was to develop men. It shattered Sammy's innocence. He endured horrifying mistreatment. He was once abducted by white soldiers, who ridiculed everything about him by painting him white from head to toe. They also conned him into drinking beer that had been tainted with urine. On some evenings, they peed on him. 3 times, his nose was broken. They weren't finished either. Before pushing him onto the platform, they degraded him by making him perform and writing derogatory remarks on his forehead. The unending brutality was intended to break him. Soldiers strapped him to a tree one night in the bitter cold. Like the numerous victims of racial horror who came before him, he stood there defenseless. Although the cold pricked his flesh, the pain was more profound. There was a message. Remember your location, no matter where you go or what you accomplish. He was not protected by the troops. It turned its head away. It was a night he would never forget. His heart and body were scarred. It worsened. He was severely beaten by a bunch of troops during one brutal attack, and he was hospitalized for 3 days. The hitting was a punishment, not an accident. However, no one faced consequences. The army that was meant to bring Americans together allowed hatred to grow. Sammy realized he had to rely only on his own power while he lay in that hospital bed. He went to dark places because of the anguish. He considered ending everything. He nearly broke under the weight of hatred and unending abuse. However, he was dragged back by something. He discovered his weapon, voice, dancing, and showmanship. When he joined the Army's entertainment squad, it was undeniable, even by the individuals who detested him. He gained power from their acclaim. In 1951, Sammy Davis Jr. returned from his military duty. He was all set to face the world. He wanted to battle for his position in show business after having fought for his nation. That opportunity came at Sunset Boulevard's most glitzy nightclub, Kiro. March 1951 was the month Sammy opened for Janice Page as a member of the Will Maston Trio. It was a fantastic night. However, an amazing event occurred that year following the Academy Awards. The room was crowded with celebrities, including Judy Garland, Cary Grant, Marilyn Monroe, Lauren Beale, and Humphrey Bogart. They marveled at Sammy's performance, which instantly made him a household name. There was no stopping the buzz. Reservations flooded in. He made an appearance on Eddie Kinnear's Colgate Comedy Hour in 1952, and ABC even offered him a $20,000 TV pilot. For a black performer, it was unprecedented. Although there was no sponsor, Sammy had already made a name for himself. He became the talk of the town because to Sierra Rose. Tragic events occurred in 1954. Just 3 years later, Sammy, who was only 29 years old, was traveling from Las Vegas to Los Angeles in his Cadillac on November 19th. At a fork in U.S. Route 66, an automobile backed into his lane. His left eye was struck by the car's horn button during the collision. The harm was irreversible. Doctors were unable to save his eye despite his speedy arrival at Community Hospital. He was only there for 9 days. Frank Sinatra and other friends supported him. Show offers were coming in at 3 times his previous rate. Sammy initially wore an eye patch before switching to a glass eye. He referred to himself as a Jewish one-eyed black man in jest. A lot of people believed his career was over. However, he returned on the stage at Ciro's 8 weeks later, once again dazzled Hollywood's finest. Another aspect of Sam's life was altered by that accident. He became a Jewish conversion in 1960. He read about the Jews' protracted fight for survival. While he was recuperating, Eddie Kinnear, a buddy, had given him a muzzah and discussed Christianity with him. Sammy felt a sense of belonging. He said that his philosophy had always been Jewish. He felt that being Jewish and black made him stronger, despite the fact that many people made fun of him. He advocated for civil rights and became a symbol of tenacity. Sammy encountered harsh bigotry even as his notoriety increased. He was able to play as the main act in Las Vegas in the 1950s, but he was not allowed to stay in the hotels where he performed. He was not allowed to eat in the restaurants or enter through the front doors. He was not going to accept it. He insisted on change. He put pressure on casinos with the Rat Pack's assistance. He was the first black performer to remain on the frontier, earning $25,000 a week at the Sands by the early 1960s. Official segregation in Las Vegas hotels was finally abolished by 1971. Sammy made it possible. Sammy was not just a vocalist. He was a multi-talented master. He taught himself to play the vibraphone, piano, drums, trumpet, and other instruments. He was able to dance, do impressions, tell jokes, imitate voices, and even pull off gun stunts. There were several surprises in his shows. Since no one else could do it all, he became known as Mr. Show Business. Broadway was blown away by Sammy in 1956. On March 22, Mr. Wonderful opened. It was nearly unheard of for a black star at the time that the show was written specifically for him. Critics detested it. It was described as noisy and mediocre by the New York Times. But the chairs were packed with Sammy's charm. The $225,000 cost of the show was recouped after 383 performances. He even created something fresh with each performance, incorporating his nightclub performance. He was joined on stage by his father and uncle. Among the cast was Rivera, a young cheetah. Offstage, Sammy had high-profile romances and threw wild parties. He created history on Broadway. With Golden Boy, Sammy created history once more in 1964. On October 20th, it opened. His role was that of a black boxer who fell in love with a white woman. Outrage erupted when he kissed her on stage. Death and bomb threats ensued, but Sammy refused to back down. He was nominated for a Tony for his performance. He also participated in the Selma March alongside Martin Luther King Jr. During this period, Sammy put everything on the line for his convictions. His program made viewers confront harsh realities. Sammy continued beyond the stage. He starred in Anna Luke. In 1958, it addressed difficult subjects and included an all-black cast. He starred alongside Sidney Poitier and Dorothy Dandridge in Porgy and Bess in 1959. He was a star in Bob F.S.Y's Sweet Charity by 1969. Additionally, he appeared in Robin and the Seven Hoods in 1964 and Ocean's 11. With the Rat Pack in 1960, black actors in Hollywood now have more opportunities thanks to Sammy. Sammy may be seen everywhere on TV. He made appearances on numerous shows, including The Tonight Show and The Ed Sullivan Show. He started the Sammy Davis Jr. Show on NBC in 1966. He was among the first black performers to appear as the main attraction on a network variety show in prime time. He was joined by well-known people, including Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. He put forth more effort than anyone else, promoting the show with dozens of interviews every week. His fame paved the way for other black performers to get recognition. On television, in 1941, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. became pals. Sammy was just 15. In Detroit, he was playing with the Will Maston Trio. At the age of 26, Frank was on tour with Tommy Dorsey's orchestra. Frank realized he was seeing something unique when he saw Sammy on stage. Frank continued to look for methods to assist Sammy during the ensuing 10 years. Frank made sure the Will Maston Trio performed as his opening act at the Capitol Theater in New York in 1947. Sammy's life took a significant turn for the worst at that same moment. Frank did more than just open doors. When it really counted, he defended Sammy due to his race. Sammy was denied entry to the Copacabana in New York in 1950. Frank was enraged. He insisted that Sammy come back the following evening. Sammy was welcomed this time. Frank continued after that. He deliberately avoided accepting jobs at venues that wouldn't treat Sammy equally, walked in with Sammy, and sat at the same table. Frank's acts were audacious and risky during a period when black entertainers were required to utilize separate entrances and lodgings. Frank stepped in once more after Sammy lost his left eye and almost died in a vehicle accident in 1954. He took Sammy to Palm Springs to recuperate after paying the hospital fees. Frank did not allow him to feel sorry for himself. He threatened to lose everything if Sammy didn't return to the stage. Sammy was back in front of crowds in a matter of weeks. His bravery was famous. Sammy sought to emulate Frank's style because he respected him so much, including his hair's curl. Their friendship served as an example of true loyalty to the globe. Sammy gained the courage to enter the elite circles of Hollywood as a result. The world witnessed that friendship come to life on the big screen in 1960. On August 3, Ocean's 11 made its debut in Las Vegas. Frank, Joey Bishop, Sammy Dean Martin, and Peter Lawford were the main actors in the movie. They portrayed veterans of World War II executing a huge theft. Sammy played Josh Howard, a crucial component of the scheme, while the Rat Pack shot sequences behind the scenes at night and performed live at the Sands and other clubs. Until morning. At the box office, the movie brought in $5.5 million, or almost $55 million today. An iconic image was created by the last picture of the Rat Pack passing a casino sign with their names. Sammy was no longer a sidekick. Among the stars was him. Sammy was making up to $25,000 a week in Las Vegas by the late 1950s. However, he was unable to stay in the hotels where he performed, despite packing theaters. He had to remain kilometers away on the west side due to segregation. Sammy refused to let it go. At the Frontier, he was the first black entertainer to receive free accommodation and board that contributed to the dismantling of the color barrier in Las Vegas. He persisted, purchasing a share in the Tropicana and endorsing civil rights demonstrations. Sammy played a part in Nevada's 1971 legislation that outlawed hotel discrimination. When he passed away in 1990, Las Vegas briefly turned down its lights. He was now treated like a king in the city that had once spurned him. After Ocean's 11, Sammy made a lasting impression on movies as well. Alongside the Rat Pack, he starred in Sergeants 3 in 1962. The film brought about $4.3 million.